You're listening to the Life Coaching Secrets Podcast, episode number 78. Did you know that life coaches are needed now more than ever? I'm Frank Macri, founder of Thriving Coach Academy. I've trained over 1,000 coaches and helped them launch their own successful coaching businesses. If you want to make an incredible income and impact as a coach and have a lot of fun doing it, I'll show you exactly how to get it done. This is Life Coaching Secrets. What's up, coaches? In this episode, I'm going to talk about how to stop bad habits. Now, this is a big one that will often come up with your clients. So this episode will be helpful for you if you have a habit that you're looking to change in your own life, but also when you're working with clients and you're realizing that there's some kind of behavior that they have, they want to stop doing, but they're struggling. They are struggling to stop doing it, or they have an urge or an impulse that's difficult for them to control. So this is one that we often get questions about inside the academy. So firstly, I want to talk about what an urge is, because oftentimes an urge is the reason why we end up developing a bad habit. An urge is when you have a sudden temptation or a desire to do something. And this can feel very intense at times. And it's like the word urge is similar to the word urgency, where the urge is almost telling us, you need to do it right now. You need to take care of this right away. Oftentimes, an urge is very much a drive to get some form of pleasure or comfort. And again, it creates a sense of urgency in our brains, even though it really is not that urgent after all. So a lot of opportunities will come up with your clients where they'll have some kind of urge that they're struggling to manage, or they'll have a habit that they're really unable to break. So for example, if you're doing some kind of health coaching, you might have clients that have the urge to eat unhealthy foods or the urge to drink when they don't want to have certain drinks. If you are doing dating coaching, then someone might have, and they're trying to find real connection and relationships with people, but they're hooking up. They might have the urge to have sex, and they're struggling to control that urge that they have. And just in general, when it comes to having some kind of new habits or breaking unproductive habits, and these are things that people are taking, but they're getting them undesired results. Okay, so they're taking some kind of action that's not getting them a result that they want. For example, eating junk food, or maybe someone struggles with the urge to check their phone or check certain apps, the urge to lay on the couch or take a nap, the urge to smoke or do something that you don't really want to be doing. Now, I want to start with the biggest myth that people often have about urges and bad habits. One of the phrases that your clients will often say is, it's just automatic. It just happens. We hear this all the time. So here's what you need to know as a coach. It's not automatic, okay? It doesn't just happen. So when your clients say this, don't believe them, right? You really want to dial in and get curious and incorporate what I'm going to share in this episode. So when you have an urge, your clients are going to, of course, feel very passive around that urge. They're going to say things like it's automatic, or I go on autopilot. I can't control it. I just end up doing blank, right? I just end up eating the entire bag of chips. It's not that it's truly automatic. It's that your client is having thoughts that they're unaware is causing them to feel a certain way, and those feelings are causing them to act in a way that's not getting them results. So I'll say that one more time. No, in order to understand what I just shared, you must understand why it is we take action. So an action is driven by an emotion. Our emotions drive our actions. But what drives our emotions is our thinking. Okay. So when someone says it's automatic, it means that they're taking an action, but they don't know why they're taking an action. So when we peel back into that, we know that they're unaware of a certain feeling they're having that's driving the action. And they're also unaware of a certain thought that is driving that emotion. Okay, so that's why whenever you have clients that are wanting to change an action and they're unable to do that, it's because they don't know what's going on behind the scenes. They don't know the thoughts and emotions that are driving them. So when you think about the way that the brain works, and I'm going to be releasing an episode in the near future on the neuroscience of coaching and some neuroscience terms to know about. But one of those is that our brain is kind of divided into two main parts. Okay, there's the mature brain where the prefrontal cortex is. This is the part of us that allows us to make smart decisions and move our life forward and plan ahead. And then there's the more primitive part of our brain, the more primal part of our brain. Okay, and this is often where the experience of an urge will live. And what you want to help your clients realize through the different tools I'm going to share with you in a bit is that even though that primitive part of your brain might present an urge, it can't force you to do anything against your own will. Even though it feels that way, right? You still get to make that final decision. So the urge is just a vibration that's happening in your primitive brain, and it doesn't have any power. It's actually powerless without the consent of your prefrontal cortex. Okay? So think about that. Your urges are powerless until it has the consent of your prefrontal cortex. Right now, you and your clients, if you have certain behaviors that you're wanting to change, but you're struggling to change them, it's just because you are giving all the power to your primitive brain, even though it starts out powerless. Okay. So what you need to do and help your clients do is override that primitive brain so they can start making decisions that really align with the person they want to be. Okay. Now, there's also nothing wrong per se with having an urge. Okay, I remember I was supporting one of our coaches on this, and she had a lot of guilt piled on top of her urge because she wasn't sure why she kept having an urge to begin with. I think it was an urge around like wanting to eat sweets or some kind of unhealthy snacks. And there's nothing wrong with having the urge itself. So an urge is neutral. An urge isn't good. It isn't bad. The urge arising is neutral. Now, if we continue to just give into our urges, that may produce unwanted results in our lives. But I want you to know that having an urge is neutral, because having a desire for pleasure is totally human, right? Whenever you have a desire for some form of pleasure, you're not morally bankrupt for having that desire. There's nothing wrong with you. It means that you're a human and you have a functioning human brain. This is what the human brain does, okay? And as part of being a human is you also have the ability to overcome that primitive wiring in your brain to help you get long-term results that you really want. So the fact that you want a donut is okay, and that's normal, right? That donut is tapped into our instinct for having that instant reward and the calories and the food, right? It is normal for you to have that urge and that sudden desire. But your prefrontal brain knows that it's not a matter of life or death if you eat the donut or if you don't. Okay, so there's a conversation that's happening between your primitive brain and your mature brain. So whenever you're doing urge coaching with clients, you want to help them start noticing how their primitive brain is speaking, how it's doing its thing, like you're witnessing it. You're getting curious about it, like you're a scientist of it. You're studying it, because there's space between whenever an urge arises, right? There is space that in between the urge and the action you end up taking. Okay, so there's space between it. I want you to think of it as like a sequence. The urge arises. Okay, so that's just neutral. Then you're having some kind of thought. That thought is creating some kind of emotion, and that emotion is creating an action. Okay, so there's a space between when the urge arises and when an action is taken. Okay, so you might have the urge to eat something, but that urge is totally powerless without your consent. And a lot of people don't realize that, and they think, oh my gosh, I have the urge to eat the potato chips. I need to go to the kitchen and eat them right now. Okay? So when you have a desire itself can't drive action without you deciding to take that action. Let me say that one more time. Desire can't drive action without you first deciding to take that action. So when you overeat, you might be driven by the urge, but your decision is what determines whether you eat or not. Now, when you resist and you avoid and you deny an urge, that actually has a counter effect. Okay? That actually does more harm than good. It's like the expression goes, what you resist persists. Okay? So in this episode, what I'm going to reveal to you as well is the importance of just allowing urges, the art of allowing an urge to be there without trying to fight it or deny it or avoid it. Okay? So you have this urge come up, whatever it might be. I want you to think about right now, what is some kind of urge that you wish you had the ability to manage better? Maybe there's a habit that you have in your life that you're looking to change. For me personally, one of the urges that I've struggled with, there's been a few. One is sometimes the urge to check my phone. I will just have the urge, and I noticed when the phone started to show my screen time report, there were so many hours a day of screen time, and I realized, okay, this is taking away from my life, so now I need to keep this urge in check. And then sometimes I also would get the urge to stay up and not go to bed, like to just, I kind of related again to my phone, like to go on my phone at nighttime, and it was impacting my sleep. So I realized I needed to control this urge. It was an urge to like stay up late at night. And I told myself the same thing that we hear our coaches say in the academy about their clients. And sometimes what they go through is, oh, it's just automatic. It just happens. It just like all of a sudden it's 2 a.m. and I'm still sitting on the couch, not in bed. It's like, no, it doesn't just happen. You're just unaware of the thoughts and the feelings that are in between the urge and the action itself. Okay? So one of the most important things you want to help your client understand is, what is the conversation that goes on in their brain after they have the urge? What is their brain telling them? Because this is going to be really interesting to uncover. Right? So what is the conversation that happens in your brain when you have the urge? What is the negotiation that's happening as well? So oftentimes there's that conversation between your primitive brain and your mature brain. Your primitive brain is saying it wants one thing and your mature brain is saying another thing. So for example, when I had that urge to stay up and stay on my phone, I would just have like this conversation with myself. Like sometimes it was the urge to continue working, and I would just have the urge to keep working and stay up late at night. And my brain would say, it's okay. I need to finish this right now. Or, you know what, you can just, it's just one thing that you have to do left. And sometimes it's really, really quick thoughts or short sentences like that we really want to pull out with our clients. So I had those thoughts, oh, it's just one more thing, or I need to finish this right now, right? That's what my primitive brain was telling me, and that's what caused me to stay up and to continue to work more than I wanted to work certain days. So you want to understand, what's the negotiation going back and forth in your brain and your client's brain? What is your brain telling you that's convincing you to take the action that you're not wanting to take? What is happening in your brain? So you want to understand that with your clients. What is that negotiation? How is your brain convincing you to not do the desired action? I'll say that one more time. How does your brain convince you to not do the desired action? So if you think that your desired action, let's say, is to, make a healthy meal for yourself. Let's say that you have that goal. But what you're finding is you end up just ordering unhealthy foods or just going through the junk cabinet or pantry. So how does your brain convince you to not make a healthy meal for yourself? What does your brain actually tell you? And it might tell you things like, oh, it takes too much time. You don't have the time to make that meal, right? Or, oh, it's boring. You ate that healthy food yesterday. You don't need to do it today. Or it might say something like, oh, what's the big deal? It's just one meal, right? So these are all ways that your brain convinces you to do exactly what you don't want it to do. You want to pull out those thoughts with your clients. It's super interesting when you start really looking at that, okay? So how is your brain convincing you? What's the negotiation that's happening in your brain? And what are the thoughts that you're having in the moment that you take undesired action? So these are all questions that are going to get to the same thing. It's just different variations of the same question. What are the thoughts that you're having in the moment that you take that undesired outcome, right? And this is going to help you start to see what thoughts need to be shifted and examined and challenged a bit. And of course, inside the Academy, we give you a lot more tools to go much deeper into that. That goes way beyond the scope of this podcast, but I want you to start thinking about this with your clients. How can you start realizing what is that conversation going on in their brain that's causing them to take that undesired action? So another strategy that I invite you to consider, and also you can use this with your clients, is by having a way to surfing the urge. So urge surfing is a technique that is used to avoid behaviors that you don't want to be taking. It helps you stop or reduce unwanted behaviors. It's called urge surfing. So again, if you're wanting to stop smoking or stop overeating, or maybe you want to resist the urge to spend more than you'd like to be spending, or maybe you have the urge to lash out to someone, right? You want to know how to surf the urge. Now, in order to surf the urge, here's a few more pieces of information to know about how urges work. So one thing to know is that an urge rarely lasts for more than 20 to 30 minutes. Now really take that in, because when you have that urge, it's going to create this urgency like, oh my gosh, you need to check your phone right now, or you need to go eat the brownies right now, right? And it just feels like it's not going to go away. It could feel like it's just totally hijacking your brain. But what if you knew that an urge doesn't really last more than like 20, 30 minutes, if that? In fact, I've found that urges don't even last more than 10 minutes most of the time. Okay, as long as you're not really feeding those urges. So here's what I mean by feeding an urge. When you start ruminating about the urge, when you start giving it your attention, when you start planning to fulfill the urge, when you start engaging with the urges that you have, justifying it, right? You're just feeding into the urge. You're giving it more power. So your urge will actually pass if you allow it to pass. That's how urges work. Now, as I shared earlier, again, when you're trying to suppress an urge or resist it or fight it, it often makes the urge even stronger. It makes it bigger. Okay? When you try to talk yourself out of it or force yourself to be distracted from it, this might seem very productive. Your clients might think this is very productive, but it's actually making the urge even stronger when you're resisting it and fighting it. Okay? So the thing to know when it comes to urge surfing is that the best way to overcome an urge is to accept it and just ride it out without giving into it. Okay? So as you practice urge surfing, you learn a new way of experiencing urges. And you'll start to have more responsibility for your life and for your thinking. Okay, so think about there's an ocean wave, and imagine like an urge is an ocean wave that arrives and it ebbs and it flows. And by the way, this is a great metaphor you can share with your clients when it comes to educating them on urges. Think of it like a wave that just comes. And it might be very small when it starts, and then it gets bigger, And then eventually it just breaks up and it dissipates, right? And when someone's surfing, they have to trust that that wave is eventually going to get smaller and reach the shore, even when the wave at certain points is going to be very large and overwhelming. So you can ride the wave just by being present with it for a few moments and knowing that it's always going to pass. Okay? So, how is it that you ride an urge? Well, here is the best technique that I believe works so well with this. It's by applying what I call the 10-minute rule. So here's what you tell yourself when you have that urge, right? Of course, the first thing you do is you're going to notice, okay, there's an urge, right? Of course, that's step one. That's default. You're noticing that I'm having an urge right now. I'm having an urge for whatever. Now, you're not resisting it. You're just noticing it. You're just seeing that it's there. You might even notice the part of the body that you feel that urge in. Maybe there's a certain physical sensation that is associated with the urge. Okay? So the first step is noticing it, right? Just become fascinated with it. Like, oh, interesting. This is interesting. I'm having this urge right now. Become fascinated with it. Don't resist it. And then you apply the 10-minute rule. So the 10-minute rule is telling yourself, I will give into this urge in 10 minutes. I will allow myself to give into this urge in 10 minutes. And then you just continue going back to whatever you were currently doing. Now, I know that might sound very odd, so I want to make sure you understand it. When you tell your brain, I'll give into this urge in 10 minutes, and you can actually, set a 10-minute timer as well. What you do is you are taming that primitive part of your brain because you're like, okay, I'll give into that urge. Sure, I'll go eat the cookies in 10 minutes. I have the urge to eat them now. I'll give into that in 10 minutes. Now, 90% of the time, within the 10 minutes, the urge is going to go away. It's going to be gone. You're not even going to be thinking about the cookies anymore. This has happened for me so many times because I've used this and we teach our coaches how to use this with themselves and their clients. I'll have this urge sometimes to eat, even though I know that I'm not really hungry. I'll just have this urge to snack. And it could feel like, oh my gosh, I need food right now. I need to eat right now. Right? These are the thoughts that my brain's telling me. I notice those thoughts and I just say, okay, I'll give into that urge. I'll go have a snack in 10 minutes. And then within usually 5 minutes, I'm just off doing something else and the hunger is gone. It's fascinating. So this is called the 10-minute rule. This is something you can use with yourself, with your clients. This is how you start practicing urge surfing. You just ride the wave of the urge and let it just pass by you. Okay, so one of the tips I want to give you before I finish this episode up with you all is that only surf one urge at a time. Okay, so, don't try to be urge surfing with all these different things at once. Just try one at a time. Will just be more effective for you with, your willpower and your self-regulation. If you're trying to make too many changes at once, it might deplete your self-regulation and may make this more challenging to apply. Okay, so again, that 10-minute rule, I will give into this urge in 10 minutes. All right. So this is how you break bad habits with clients. This is how you help them shift any kind of relationship they have with their urges. So they're not just living their life at the effect of whatever urge that comes up for them. Because and I just want to end this by saying that there's the part of giving into an urge is that it's like an instant gratification that we get, right? And the thing with instant gratification is that while it gives us that pleasure and, it hits on that dopamine, we get that hit of dopamine, it doesn't really give us that meaningful life that we want when we're just, seeking this immediate and instant gratification. But when you learn how to surf an urge, allow the urge to come and go, you actually create a much bigger and broader life. So rather than living for instant gratification, you are able to be more present with what is. And when you're present with what is, then you're able to start creating your life on purpose. All right, that's what I got on how to stop bad habits. Thanks for listening. Before you go, here's a short clip of one of the stories from a student inside the Academy. So enjoy their story, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Hello, my name is Victoria Manzoros, and I run a company called Inspiration Unleashed Coaching, where I help leaders have access to more health and empowerment. In 2019, I believe my business did 60,000 or so, and then 2019 or 2020, it did almost 100,000. Yeah, it's a wild thought to think that the first year that I almost hit six figures is during a pandemic. This year, I'm projected at least 140,000, if not 150,000. To be able to say that something that I've made is not only helping people, but is generating income that is higher than any corporate job that I've worked at, even in management, is great. It hits all of my boxes of what I want in life. I have freedom, I have impact, I get to be myself, and I get to create the things that I find to be really helpful for people, and it also actually helps them. So it's everything that I would want I get to have in my job, which is amazing. And then to be paid well for it is a bonus. So when I started this coaching business, I was concerned about what it would take to be successful in it, whether or not that would include burnout, and if burnout was a necessity to hit a higher level of income. And what I see now is it's quite possible to have a great work-life balance, and this is just the beginning, to have a great work-life balance, to be able to have freedom in my life, and then also have financial stability. It's totally doable, and anyone can do it.
Hey, would you like access to powerful coaching tools you can use on yourself and clients right away? For being a listener of the podcast, I'm giving you a VIP guest pass to get a sneak peek into my coach training program. Inside, you'll learn our coaches' secret tool they use to transform their clients' lives. And you'll also get a training on how to launch a coaching business. Just head over to www.thrivingcoachacademy.com/VIP to get started. I'll see you on the inside.